Hi friend, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and this month we're talking all about smaller stages and how to really make lighting work for them. And in this video, we're talking about the solo artist. So there's a couple things that are unique about solo artists that give it a little bit of a different spin when it comes to lighting. I mean, sure, if you're a solo artist, you can totally go ahead with, the ground supported only that we went over earlier this month. We'll link to that here. With the no space behind band, we can link to that here, etc. Any of those will work. However, when it comes down to it, when you are that solo artist, you're by yourself or you have maybe a significant other helping you set up. So you've got to come in, set up your instruments, maybe a speaker on a stand, or, a column speaker system, and, set up all your stuff and tear it all down at the end, right? With little to no help. So you don't want a very involved lighting rig because you're on your own, right? So what do I advise for this type of situation to still get great lighting? Okay. Now, in terms of control, I gotta say, NTEX EMU, which is kind of forthcoming as I record this, it's in beta, is, the best way to be able to have something on a foot pedal and just play it with your show. That's a great control option. The Mac Light Key software is really great as well. If you're running tracks or something, you can trigger them from it. If you want to run just a foot pedal for your songs, though, EMU's kind of the only game in town. Now, let's talk about lights, because this is where it really differs from other small band or church setups. When you're by yourself, the unique thing you've got going is there's only one of you. So it's a really tiny stage area that we have to light. So a lot of times, like we've mentioned before, we talk about the 80J Starbar Wash or a 4-par light kit. And those work really well, but if you're just by yourself, you don't need another tripod and 4 lights to set up. I mean, sure, grab them, point one at you, one at the ceiling, one at the dance floor, one at the backdrop, and you can do some really cool stuff. But if you're just looking for the basics, I recommend, 1 to 2 lights from the front and maybe a light from behind, okay? They can be on the ground, but more preferably, you would take them, like I'm taking this light here, get it on your speaker stand. Just clamp it down. These little 80J C clamps are similar, often work really well. And just clamp that softly to your speaker stand. Don't crush the stand. Or there's mounts to put lights on top of speakers that are available for a lot of speakers. Okay? And get that light, straight on or slightly above, so that it will take, and there we can see the light, and it will light you really well and not cast the kind of shadows you see when you light someone straight up. So what kind of light do I recommend for this? This here in my hand is one of my favorites, the Gamma Starburst Par. For this application, not my pick, because it's not fan cooled at all. So it's silent, but it's also heavier. It's a little brighter than what you need typically. And it's not quite as wide as I'd like to see. So when you are a solo artist, that speaker stand and that light are going to be like real close to you. Okay? It'll either be on that stand and you want a real wide angle, or it's going to be on the ground coming up at you and you want a really wide angle. Why do you want a wide angle? The wide angle does 2 things. Number 1, and the most obvious, is that when you're really close to that light, it spreads far enough to cover you and not just be like a super bright hot spot like a lot of the pars on the market. Okay, a lot of the kind of entry level par type lights, they're really narrow to look brighter. They appear brighter because if they're only so bright and then you make it really narrow, it appears really bright. But that doesn't work when if you move back and forth at all. Now you go from bright to dark and people take video on their phones and it looks real bad. And the second reason is for shadowing. Okay, even if the best you can do is just get it on the ground pointing up at you. And maybe we'll talk in a second about some specific products, but maybe there's some light coming at you overhead anyways, just from the general lighting around the restaurant that you're playing in or wherever. And then you're just using this for color. Okay, that'll work then if it's coming down from below. But having that wide angle, whether it's straight on, slightly above, which is best, or below, means it gets wide enough to cover you by the time it gets to you. And then by the time it hits a surface behind you, by the time it hits the ceiling, the wall, maybe you've got one as a backlight on the ground pointed up at you to give you a little separation and a little extra color, especially if you got big hair. If you got that going, then by the time it hits the wall, by the time it hits the ceiling, it's going to be a lot dimmer because it's a really wide angle. Okay. And that means you're going to notice the shadowing less, which is like the biggest game here. So let's go through a couple options. One that I really like to recommend here is the 80J dots par, and we'll link to this below, but it may change over time. Basically, all of the brands have a par type unit that has a really wide angle. So you can take the lens off with these thumb screws, you get a 60-degree beam, and they have a dots par 100, I believe. I believe that one is an 80-degree, but it's a bigger, brighter unit, probably bigger and brighter than what you need. Yeah, a lot of times for that solo artist. But stick with this one. The retail cost right now is that much, though that's subject to change in the future, especially over the past few years. We've watched the price of shipping go through the roof, and thus prices have changed accordingly. But, something like this is great because it's wide, it's lightweight. Okay, that's really key. So this guy is only, let's see, we've got all the tech specs always on learning stage lighting gear. It says it's 5 pounds. I feel like it's lighter than that. Maybe the lens, I think, is kind of glassy, so without the lens, it really doesn't feel heavy when you have it in person. I promise. And getting that guy wide on top of the speaker, maybe you find a creative way to like strap it or clamp it to a column PA, etc. You can get it in a really good spot, or just use the little split yoke as all these have, put it on the floor, face it up at you. Okay, and like this par right here, most of these pars have that. You just loosen up the nuts on the side, spread it out, and then you're able to sit on the ground. Obviously, you take the clamp off first. Okay, so dots par, great option. There'll be other options in the future, but that's the type of light that I look for. Just a really inexpensive but wide light. And these chip-on boards, it's a different type of LED that some products have. Basically, what this means is it's only a red, green, blue RGB LED, but they tend to make a better white than RGB LEDs that are not a chip-on board unit. And so that's why you typically don't see the Cobbs, these COB chip-on board LEDs having RGBW. I don't know if that's an engineering thing. I think it is. But they typically make better whites and colors than a cheap RGB-only fixture. Okay. Another thing that's caught my eye, another option, is this Stomp light. So I have zero affiliation with Stomp light, but they basically make a little battery-powered or plug-in light, and they call it stage lighting for musicians. Okay. It's designed to go down on the ground. You can get two, and they can kind of sync together with a foot pedal. Again, I have zero affiliation with these guys at stomplight.com. We'll link to that below. But it just walks you through like this little picture here. Shows you, okay, like I mentioned, it's when you have a little bit of light coming from you from the front, then you can bring in a light from below, and the shadows behind aren't too distracting, right? Or if you're a band and you've got a front line and a back line, by the time this light hits that lead singer and goes up, it's going to be in a dark spot in the ceiling, and it's not really the shadows aren't going to be that distracting. Okay, so pretty cool little units. Again, not anything I have any affiliation with, but they feel pretty confident about their product. But they're cool. They're fairly inexpensive given that they have like little controllers built in. They have the carry bag. They really have everything. They have a really wide angle, and they do work well for that type of throw and go. Just walk in, place it on the ground, good to go. Okay. But whatever you choose, whether you choose something like a really wide par, like that dots par, something like the Stomp light, lighting for the singer-songwriter, for the solo artist is a little bit different. I hope today's video has helped you understand what you can do, what you can't do, and kind of some of the nuances of, okay, if you put it on the ground, you're going to have this, blah, blah, blah. Just things to help you out, even if you already have lights and you're using them as a solo artist. But hey, If you don't have lights and you're looking to upgrade, hit us up at learnstagelightinggear.com. What we do there is we take some info you give us, you add what you're looking for to a quote list, we help you get a personalized price on that package, and we answer any questions you have. We want to be, if you're looking to buy lights, the #1 place you go and the only place you go when you're looking to buy lights. We would love to help you. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys on our next video. Thanks.